everybody. Welcome to section 2.8. Your objectives for this particular section will be to calculate the distance and midpoint between 2 points, write a standard formula for a circle given the center and the radius, determine the center and the radius given the standard form, and then convert the general form of a circle equation to a standard form equation. So I try to give relevance and some information and some background on those things that I can. First of all, finding distance or length. Of course, you know that this is extremely important to try to find length between 2 points. So, for example, in astrophysics, to find the distance between the planets, just reading street directions, finding heights of towers, mountains, the distance of the shore from a point in the sea, structural loads, roof slopes, ground surfaces. Those are just a few of the reasons why you would need to find length. And of course, midpoint is nothing but an average. Okay. So an important thing about midpoint or average, let's say you go to one store and buy milk. So let's just say that Kroger has milk for $2.79 per gallon. I'm not sure what that is. And let's say, if that's correct at the moment, but let's say Gardner's has milk for $2.59 a gallon, and you need to create a budget. And you're not sure sometimes whether you're going to buy Kroger milk or Gardner's milk, but what you would do is you're going to find the midpoint or average of these two. So let's talk about midpoint. How do you find the average or the midpoint? You simply add up the two values and divide by 2. So let's do this a little bit with our Kroger milk and Gardner's milk. So you take out your calculator. And you're going to add 2.79 to 2.59, and you're going to divide it by 2. And this is going to give you your average that if you were working on a budget, so that's going to be 5.38 divided by 2. So you're going to pay on average $2.69 for every gallon of milk you buy. So you know if you buy 4 gallons a month, you need to multiply that by 4 so you can set a budget for that. You also do averages on your grades. So if you have 2 test grades in, you can add those 2 up and divide by 2 and see what's your average. So average is no different than midpoint. So let me help you through this one. We're going to do midpoint first because we're already in this one. And then we'll go about doing distance. So let's just look at midpoint. Let's find the midpoint between 1 and -6 and -8 and -4. So what I want to do is I want to graph this for you. You've got 1, -6, let's say that's about right here. And you've got -8, -4. Let's say that's about right here. And you want to try to find the middle point between that. So you are going to you want to try to find kind of about where is the middle of that. So you've got 1, -6, and you've got -8, -4, and you want to find out about where the middle of that line is. So what you have to do is you have to find the midpoint, or again the average, for the x value, and you have to find the midpoint, or the average, for the y value. Now you don't have to graph these, I'm just doing this as a visual because you will have to get another xy point here, coordinate, so that we can plot that point. So how do we find midpoint? Again, it's just average. So we take our two x's, we add them up, and we divide by 2. Okay, so -7/2 or -3.5 is where your x point is, and that kind of looks about right. We've gone in the negative direction. Now let's see what our y value is. So now we're going to take the y values and we're going to add them up and divide by. So that would be -10 divided by 2 is -5, and that looks pretty close. It's somewhere above the -6, so the middle point between these 2 points would be -7/2 and -5. Okay, so you know if you needed to stop in the middle, that's where you would stop. Okay, I'm going to give you one to work for just a minute. You do this one. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and pause the video. You get out a scratch sheet of paper and try to see if you can work this one. Okay, so I guess you've started playing it. That means that you have gotten the answer to these. I want the midpoint of the x value, and I want the midpoint of the y value. So I have something, again, you don't have to draw this, but -10, 2 might be out here, and 5, -6 may be down here. So we're trying to find the middle point between these two. So what we're going to do is we're going to add up the two x values. So that would be -5/2. And we're going to add up the two y values. So your point that's in the middle, somewhere right in here, okay, right in here, is -5/2, -2. If you want to put -2.5, that's fine. Okay, so now let's go on to distance. Now there is a formula for distance, but it is derived from the Pythagorean theorem. And that's the way I prefer for you to work it. Okay, so let me give you the distance formula just so that you have it. But I don't want you to have to memorize it because sometimes it's hard to remember this long formula. But I'm going to show you how you can use the Pythagorean theorem and get the same thing. So this is the distance formula. It's the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And I'll be honest, when I was in school, I never could remember if the center part was a plus, if these were a plus, which one was a minus. It just all confused me. So we're going to treat this like Pythagorean theorem, and I really want you to actually sketch out these points so that it makes sense to you. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to plot the points on a sketch. And I'm going to show you what that means. It's kind of like what I just did. So we're going to find the distance between -1 and 4 and 3, -2. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sketch me a little graph. And I'm just going to put some little tick marks here. Doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to put me a point at -1, 4. And I'm going to put me a point at 3, -2. Okay? Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect these 2 points. That's the distance. That's the distance that I am wanting. Okay? This length right here. So what I want you to pay close attention to is I'm going to create a triangle. I'm going to come down and I'm going to go across, but I'm going to go back and I'll make sure I've labeled these. Okay? So what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to do a square plus b square equals c square, where c square is always the distance that we want. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to find the length of these legs and the length of these legs. Now I'm going to try to relate it back to the Pythagorean theorem with this distance formula. So here are the 2 legs. Let's call this one leg A. Okay, leg A is going to be this one, which are our x values, and leg B will be this one, which are our y values. So what I'm wanting to do is, what is the length from here to here? Well, if this is -1 on the x, and yes, I've got off a little bit on my tick mark, so y'all excuse me, but this was -1 on my x, and this is 3 on my x. -1 to 3 is a distance of 1, 2, 3, 4 points. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a distance of 4. So that would be 4 squared. So see what you did up here? You said 3 minus -1. You took your x here, 3, minus -1, which gave us 3 plus 1, which is 4. But all you have to do is sketch out these points and say, hey, I've got to go from -1 to 3. That's a distance of 4. Now we're going to look at the distance of the length of the y. Okay, so again, I'm a little bit off on my sketch, but if I'm at -2 and then I go to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I've gone a distance of 6, which is -2 minus 4. Now that's -6, but you're going to be squaring it, so everything's going to turn out positive anyway. But anyway, or 4 minus -2. But your distance is never negative. You may go in a negative direction, but your length or your distance is never negative. So even if you went -2 minus 4 and got -6, it's still a length of 6. So we're going to say 4 squared, which is 16, plus 6 squared, which is 36. 16 plus 36 is 52. Now this represents C, the length here. That's the one I want. So C squared, and how do you undo a square? You take a square root. And I want you to give it to me at 3 significant figures, which is 7.21. Would be approximately my distance. Okay, I kind of feel like I need to do another one of those again, but you stop this and you back it up. You replay it as much as you need to. But we're going to do another distance. So we're going to find the distance between -6, -3, and 7, 4. I'll give you a minute to write that down. So once again, I'm not going to try to remember that distance formula. If you can, and that's what you want to do, that is perfectly fine by me. I'm going to sketch so at -6, 3, I'm at about right here, and it's not going to be perfect, but it'll give me a visual. And at 7, 4, I'm going to be about right there. Let me change that back to red. Okay, so this, oh, my bad, I made a mistake. Let me erase this and correct it. That should be -6, -3. Bet some of y'all caught that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. There we go. Bet some of y'all caught that before I did. Okay, so that is my C. That is my hypotenuse. So now what I want to do is I'm going to create a triangle. And again, this one's not going to be perfect because it's just a sketch. But I'm going to label this -6, -3. I'm going to label this 7, 4. This is just to help me see. So I'm going to do a square plus b square equals c squared. And c is what I'm looking for. So let's get the horizontal distance. If I'm going from -6 to 7, I'm going -6, I'm going 6 to get to the 0, and then another 7, I'm going 13 total places. That's my horizontal distance, -6 to 7. Okay, and again, my little tick marks aren't perfect, but I'm wanting you to get the idea. Now, I want to go the vertical piece. So I'm going from -3 to 4. So if when I go to -3 to 0, that's a movement of 3, a distance of 3. Plus I'm going another 4, so that's 7. So 13 squared is 169. 7 squared is 49. So that gives me 218. I'm going to take the square root of it because that's how I get rid of a square. Oop, don't know what happened there. Oh, it's not liking that. Well, y'all excuse me. I'm going to take the square root. So to take the square root of 218 gives me 14 point, if I round that one appropriately, 14.8. That's my distance. All right, now I'm going to give you one to try on your own. Find the distance between -7 and -110. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and you work it. Okay, good. So let's see if you've gotten the right answer. Again, I'm just going to sketch it, and it is, no, I keep saying it is just a sketch to give you a visual of what you're looking at. Oh, I've got 10 up here. There's lots of them. Okay, so I'm at 3, negative 7, and negative 1, 10. So this is my distance. Whoops. So I want to create my triangle. Okay. So this is my C. So let's look at the horizontal component. So this was, this was negative 110. And this was 3, negative 7. So let's look at the horizontal component. From negative 1 to 0 is a movement of 1, plus another 3 is a total distance of 4. Okay, now let's look at the vertical component. And again, this is just a sketch. So you really need to pay attention to your numbers. You're going from negative 7 to 0, which is a distance of 7, plus another 10, which is 17. So you've got 4 squared, which is 16. You've got 17 squared, which is 289. So that's 305 equals C squared, and you take the square root. And that would be C is approximately 17.5 units. Okay, so we're just going to focus on distance and midpoint for this video lesson. So please go to the assignment now and complete that assignment so that I have some idea of how much you retained in this lesson. Thank you, and I'll see you on Monday.